Are you looking for an easy DIY project to spruce up your kitchen? In this video, I will show you how to make DIY floating shelves using metal brackets in just a few simple steps. To install these shelves, you need to install them onto a stud. You can also use toggle bolts to hold them, but a stud is ideal. So use your stud finder and find the studs. You're going to want to make sure that you're on the stud. That way you're not drilling into wires or anything else that might be behind the wall. After, place the metal bracket onto the wall and determine where you want to install it. Make sure that it's level and mark those areas where you're going to drill your holes. After, drill your holes with a pre-hole and then install the screws and attach it to the metal bracket. I'm using screws on the top and bottom of the bracket to make sure that it is sturdy and not going anywhere. And once again, check that you're level. Now it's time to prep the wood. The wood that I'm using is from the local mill, so there are some extra steps that I might have to do that you won't if you're getting it from a lumber store. So I am cutting it down to the size that I wanted for my shelves, and I'm using the table saw, and then I'm cutting it to length with the miter saw. Now this is probably one of those extra steps I talked about, which is using a planer to level the board. Because it came from a mill, I need to level it. Next, it's time to sand the wood. I am using a 220 grit sandpaper. It's my favorite sandpaper. And I am just sanding down the wood so it has a completely smooth finish. There's no way that we're going to get splinters, so I'm just making sure it is clean. Once the board is prepped, it's time to mark where you're going to be drilling the holes for the metal bracket. I'm just using a pencil to mark it, but the ideal way would have been using a tape knife, the one for drywall, and put that up and then mark the line. That way you know for sure where it needs to be on both sides of the bracket. I did have to do some extra measuring just to make sure this was in the correct spot. After that, I pre-drill holes that are about 1 inch to 1.5 inches deep just to test the fit. And here's a tip, make sure you use 1/8 of an inch bigger drill bit than the brackets are. It will make it easier to install your shelf. And here I'm just checking the fit to make sure they're all lined, and then I'm going to go back and drill the holes for the length of the bracket. I did have to use a big auger drill bit that's 12 inches long to give me the depth that I needed. I'm installing these shelves over tile, so I did have to do the tile prep first. After, I used tung oil to finish the wood. It's one of my favorite types of finish because it is food safe and easy to apply. I did use 2 coats of the tung oil, and so that is why the wood does look saturated. Here's what it looks like for the first coat. After allowing the tung oil to dry, they were ready to install into place. To make sure that the shelves didn't go anywhere, I did silicone the top and the bottom, and here is what they look like after they're finished. And if you're curious on how I installed the backsplash, I do link to that video below.